I will after you go to bed. Okay. Where are we here?
Daddy, I put a yellow and a green and a pink bow in your hair.
Oh, very nice. Thank you. Okay, this chapter is called A Visit to Calliope. Let me rub your back. Ishmael seemed relieved to have his problem out in the open. We were working under a deadline and could not afford to shilly-shally. All the same, I did begin our next session with a question that
You almost just said silly
Oh,
town.
yes, I did. I did begin our next session with a question that was probably superfluous. If you knew you had only a few weeks left here, why did you put that ad in the newspaper? He grunted. I put the ad in the newspaper precisely because I have only a few weeks left here. This may well be my last chance. Your last chance to do what? To get someone to take this away.
That's rude.
This?
It's rude to take something away from people when it's not yours.
That is true, it is. This being what's in your head? He nodded. Excuse me if I'm being dense, but I thought you'd already had lots of pupils. That's right. But none of them had taken away what you will take away, Julie. None of them has taken away what Alan will take away. Each of you encodes the message differently. Each of you has received a different telling and will transmit a different telling of the same message. Alan hasn't heard the story of the dancers? No. And you won't hear the story of the hapless airmen. The stories you hear are stories created for you in particular, at particular times when you need to hear them. As the stories Alan hears are stories created for him in a particular time and when he needs to hear them. And with that, as an introduction, I will present you another one I prepared for you last night. You remember I said the story of how you came to be this way would take several tellings? Yes. Well, the story of Terpsichore was the first telling. This, the story of Calliope, named after the music of epic poetry, is the second. This is another planet you would definitely want to visit on your quest for enlightenment, Ishmael began. Life emerged on Calliope in much the same way as it did on Earth. Those who wish to imagine that God called every species to life in a final, changeless form are welcome to do so. But I am incapable of embracing such a primitive scenario. If one accepts the invitation to think of God as a parent, then one must wonder what sort of parent would actually care to bring his or her children into being as fully formed adults, all ready to soar like eagles, see like hawks, run like cheetahs, hunt like sharks, and think like computer
But what
scientists.
About cheetahs? They hide in the night.
And that's true, they do. Only a very unimaginative and insecure one, I feel. Be that as it may, the creatures of Calliope came into being by means of the process generally known as evolution. There's no reason to imagine that this process is unique to Earth. On the contrary, for reasons that will become plain, it would be very surprising if it were so. There's no need or reason to go through the process in detail. It will be enough if you see and understand even a few of its results. For example, I would recommend to your attention a creature that made its appearance on Calliope some 10 million years ago. A quilled lizard with a long snout suitable for browsing in anthills. When I say that it made its appearance, I don't mean that it had no predecessor. Of course it did. I trust you understand that. I said that I did. Well, this quilled lizard, let's call it a porky lizard, was nevertheless a strange creature, or would certainly seem strange to you or me, as does the porcupine or the anteater. Now, let me ask you what your expectation is for this creature. Is it your expectation that it will be a successful addition to the community of life on Calliope? I said I didn't have any basis for an expectation. How could I? Ishmael nodded as if he could see the sense in this reply. Let's transpose the matter to a locale closer to home. Suppose biologists were to discover a porky lizard living in the deepest jungles of New Guinea. Such a thing is not at all impossible. New species are being discovered all the time. Okay. What would be your expectation in this case? Would you expect a creature like this to be successful? A successful inhabitant of the jungles of New Guinea? Certainly. Why wouldn't it be? That is not the question I'm exploring here, Julie. The question I'm exploring is, what is your expectation? You've answered that. You expect it to be successful. The next question is, why do you expect it to be successful? Because if it weren't successful, then it wouldn't be there at all. Where would it be? It would be nowhere. It would have disappeared. Why? Why? Because failures disappear, don't they? In this case, Julie, I'd rather you answer this yourself. Do failures disappear or not? They disappear. They have to. If a species is here, then it obviously can't be a failure. Exactly. No matter how strange it may look to us. Thus, a flightless bird like the emu, improbable as it seems, is successful where it is for the time being. There doesn't constitute a guarantee for the lifetime of the planet. The dodo was a success where it was and when it was. Then conditions changed, and it could no longer succeed where it was, when it was. So it failed and disappeared. I understand. This is a fundamental fact. The community of life that we see here at any given time isn't just a random collection. It is a collection of successes. It is the remainder that is left over when the failures have disappeared. Right. Now let's return to Calliope. I'll ask again what your expectation is for the porky lizard. My expectation is that it's a success, because if it was a failure, it wouldn't be there at all. That's right. No species emerges by failing. What the community brings forth are successes, species that are able to cope with the conditions around them. This is why I say that the process we observe here is overwhelmingly likely to be the process observed everywhere. At any given moment, communities anywhere will be largely composed of species that work. Yeah, I don't see how it could be any other way. At the same time, however, any given species in the community might be declining. Come back in 20 years and it might be gone. But that doesn't invalidate our general expectations. Any given species may go out of existence by failing, but it certainly didn't come into existence by failing. No species comes into existence by failing. That is simply unthinkable. Yes, I see that. Now, back to Calliope again. Here is a picture of a porky lizard's reproductive life. They are entirely promiscuous. Neither males nor females recognize their young, but females recognize their home nest and will nurse any pup in that nest. If a female finds the unguarded nest of another porky lizard inside her home territory, she will enter that nest and kill any of the pups that she finds. I ask why she would do that. Her intentions cannot be known, of course, but killing these pups does in fact tend to increase her own reproductive success. With these pups gone, her own pups are more likely to carry her genes into the gene pool. Do you understand what I'm saying? I think so. Maybe a little vaguely, but I think so. Good. The males follow a contrary practice. As I just explained, a female kills rivals to her pups inside her territory. A male kills pups outside his territory. Why outside rather than inside? Because inside his territory, the pups may well be his own. Inside her territory, the female's pups are only in her nest. Inside his territory, the male's pups are all over the place. My head is beginning to swim a bit. How does killing pups outside his territory increase his reproductive success? In a different way from the way that killing pups increases the female's chance of reproductive success. The male who is moving around outside his home territory is looking for opportunities to mate. And those opportunities will increase if the females he encounters are not currently nursing pups. If he kills all this generation of pups, the next generation of pups will carry his genes exclusively. Wow, I commented. So this killing off of pups has nothing to do with population control? The individuals are acting in a way that improves their representation in the gene pool. But of course, this way of acting has many other effects as well. When the population is dense in a female's home territory, there's more likely to encounter the nests of her rivals, and so is more likely to kill pups. On the other hand, when the population is sparse, the male has fewer mating possibilities in his home territory, and so goes farther afield. And going farther afield, he's more likely to encounter pups that he will kill. In other words, when the home territory is sparsely populated, the female kills few pups and the male kills many elsewhere. When the home territory is densely populated, the female kills many pups and the male kills few. The overall effect does tend to stabilize the population. Nothing can ultimately succeed if it has the opposite effect. Okay. Now, what is your expectation of this system? Do you expect it to be a success for porky lizards, or a failure? This question struck me as rather pointless, and I said so. The way you've set it up, any system would be a success. You could make up anything, and I'd have to say that my expectation is that it works. You could make up a system in which porky lizards don't mate at all, and I'd have to say that it must work or it wouldn't be there, would it? A valid objection, he conceded. However, this isn't just some fantasy I've concocted. It's exactly what is observed among white-footed mice. Peromyscus leucopus, such as you might find in forests of the Allegheny Mountains. This isn't to say that it's unique to them. Similar patterns are found in meadow voles, gerbils, lemmings, and several species of monkeys. Okay, I guess I just don't quite see where you're headed with this. I'll try to point the way for you. The ways of the porky lizards, or white-footed mice, seem bizarre until you understand how they contribute to the animal's success. Perhaps they even seem immoral, something that right-thinking people should put a stop to. Yes, that's true. I'd like you to see, however, that if you were to convert them to what might seem to you to be a higher nobler standard of behavior, they would very probably become extinct within just a few generations. To use a bit of jargon, our examination of these strategies reveals them to be evolutionarily stable. Imagine that these species, as we see them right now, are the product of 100,000 experiments conducted over a 10 million year period. During that time, all sorts of reproductive strategies have been tested. Many of them have proved to be self-eliminating, like the one you suggested, not mating at all. Animals that don't mate at all obviously contribute nothing to the gene pool. Generation after generation, those with no tendency to mate do not reproduce. Generation after generation, less and less is seen of this tendency. Does that make sense to you? Yes, of course. During this period, dozens of strategies are tested, and those that tend to promote reproductive success are reinforced in every generation. Those that tend to diminish reproductive success are weakened. Does this still make sense? Yes. At the end of this period, what is found is that a single set of strategies has prevailed. When the home territory starts to become crowded, females kill pups in rival nests. When reproductive opportunities start to become scarce, males move out of their home territory and kill pups wherever they find them. An analysis of these strategies will show you why they can't be improved upon by any others. But this is neither the time nor the place for such an analysis. In the absence of that analysis, I ask you to take my word for it. These two strategies are evolutionarily stable, which means that no others exist that can supplant them. Any other strategy will fail. Individuals that desist from killing pups in the circumstances I've described will not only be as reproductively successful as individuals that do not desist. This means that any attack on these strategies constitutes an attack on the biological viability of these species. Okay, my head was really swimming, but I think I've got that. These infanticidal patterns probably seem quite strange to you. I'd suggest that this isn't because they're inherently peculiar, but rather because you haven't grown up with them the way you've grown up with other patterns. You'll never see a documentary about white-footed mice, because they're just not fascinating cinematic subjects. What you will see are documentaries about big, dramatic creatures like ibex, bighorn sheep, elephant seals. All these will, without fail, show you behaviors that promote individual reproductive success. For example, in any film about ibex, you're bound to see footage of males bashing into each other head-on during the rut. In the same way, in any film about elephant seals, you're bound to see footage of giant males savagely thrashing one another to contest possession of a harem. People find an amusement in these spectacles, and they would never find in the spectacle of a white-footed mouse being the head of a helpless pup no bigger than a thumb, or biting the head of a helpless pup no bigger than a thumb. I can't believe that. Nonetheless, the contests of the creatures I've just mentioned are no less deadly. They're just more exciting to watch. True, I guess, but I'm still not sure what your point is. I'm trying to get you used to the fact that things that look strange to you are not, in fact, stranger than things that look ordinary. You're used to seeing animals being aggressive, so the aggressiveness of mountain goats and elephant seals seems unremarkable to you. But you're not used to seeing animals killing their rivals young. So the infanticidal behavior of white-footed mice seems grotesque and perhaps even shocking to you. But in fact, both strategies are equally grotesque and equally ordinary. I guess you could say that I'm trying to get you to stop looking at your neighbors in the community of life as if they are characters in Bambi, humans in animal disguise. In a Disney animated feature, two male deer clashing heads in a rut would be portrayed as courageous and heroic warriors. But a white-footed mouse sneaking into a rival's nest to kill a pup would surely be portrayed as vile and cowardly villain. Yeah, I certainly see that.